What is good, guys, and welcome back to part 12 of the Evo 5 build. Now, in the last episode you saw me do a little bit of wiring. We're going to do a little bit more wiring now. We've got a few more plugs to extend. Basically, I didn't really film much of the previous wiring extension bits, so I'm going to film a little bit more this time and show you sort of how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it this way. Basically, so you guys can copy. So if you did want to do a wiring loom tuck on a Lancer, on an Evo, they're more or less the same sort of wiring loom setups. You can sort of copy this as such. My catch can blankers did arrive. So we've got two AN10 blankers on the catch can. That means that it's pretty much ready to go in. I just need to finalise mounting positions and a few other bits and bobs. You saw me in last episode actually finish making the bracket for it and mounting that all up. But what we've got to do now is also, on the other day, a friend of mine popped round as well and wired up the Immobilizer alarm. That's got to go underneath the, it used to mount up here on the firewall, but now it is going underneath the front wing, up probably with the front setup. Probably where the oil cooler and the washer bottle and stuff is. I'll make a bracket and stick it up there because that's a much better place for it. And it's also been joined back into the wiring loom down under here. And there's two other wires that I need to join, and that's it for the wiring that I had to cut to be able to pull it through the engine bay from where like an immobilizer and a turbo timer and stuff have been wired in and things like that. All fun and games. I really don't like wiring, but you know, that's all part of fun. That's all part of the fun when you build something like this, is doing stuff that you don't particularly enjoy or like doing. But yes, there is a few more bits I need to show you that have arrived. These were probably the most expensive AN fittings that I've ever bought. They are made by a company called Torx, and they're a 90-degree fitting with an AN10 bung on it with the right thread, which is M22 by 1.5 for my Setrab oil cooler. So if you wanted to run 90-degree fittings on your Setrab oil cooler, these are the fittings to get. They are about £16 each though. AN stuff is not cheap, but they're a very nice quality fitting, and they are much shorter than an actual 90-degree bend, and I'll show you why I need those now. So because of where I routed this lower intercooler pipe, where it runs around here, it comes a little bit too close to the oil cooler. So I had to flip the oil cooler around and put the fittings on the outside instead of on the inside. I might, if I can get it to clear a little bit more, I don't know how, but I might see if maybe they'll fit, but I doubt it. No, not quite. So we're just going to run the oil filter fittings on the outside, which isn't a problem. Not a problem at all. That's how the stock one was mounted, but the standard 90-degree fitting was too big, and the bumper wouldn't clear it, hence the reason for going for these. My GM air temperature sensor kit arrived with the weld bung that you weld onto the upper intake pipe, and the plug and the pins to fit it up and make it work. Now, the reason you need this is because I'm going for the Link G4X ECU. I will be going speed density and running MAFless. So to run MAFless, you need a inlet air temperature sensor, which is what this is. This is from it's a GM part, so it's really readily available. This kit is actually from GB Ent in the UK. It's about 30 quid. It doesn't cost very much, but you need to take two of the wires from the mass airflow plug and wire them into this plug so that they plug into this sensor, and then you have your map sensor and everything, and it all works. The map sensor is built into the ECU, and basically it does your fueling through the map and the inlet air temperature sensor as opposed to the MAF, which means we can have a nice bigger, freer flowing 4-inch intake. Okay, so this is how I've chosen to extend bits of my wiring loom. Some of you guys may not like this particular method, but this is what I've used at work, and I've used it for a few years now when it comes to wiring, and I find that it works quite nicely, and it gives a presentable, easy sealed finish that just generally works. So we're not doing anything fancy here, we're not rewiring anything, we're literally just cutting the plug off and then joining the same colour wires back to the same colour wires. So all we're going to do is, because of where this routes, I'm going to extend these by about a foot, because my whole goal is to tuck this part of the loom here back against the brake lines at the back, and then have this run around the side here to its plug, as opposed to running along the side anyway, because this whole loom used to come up over here to the fuse box. But now, because we've rebooted the fuse box, it's going to run slightly differently. Yeah, let's extend these wires then. Obviously, strip all the ends so that they're ready to accept the connectors. Now, I found out about these through work. Now, these are little connectors that are heat shrink with a bit of solder in the middle. And what you do is you heat them with a heat gun, and it obviously shrinks the heat shrink, but it also melts the solder in the middle. So you put a wire in one side and a wire in the other side, and they meet in the middle, and then the solder melts and joins the wires together. It's a very quick, simple and easy method, I found, that works first time all the time. There's no worrying about like putting a solder buddy down and trying to solder it at the same time, and this is just a much easier, simpler, faster method of doing the same job basically. So we're going to join the yellow and green wires. Now all you've got to do is take your piece of extended cable, slide it in the end, take your matching colour, slide it in the other end so that they butt together in the middle, and then get your heat gun and make sure that the two are definitely in the middle. The solder is covering both wires, and heat it up. And make sure that you heat it enough so that the solder melts properly. But do not pull them straight away, because obviously the solder takes a while to become solid again once it's melted. But once it's done, that's it. Tight, easy, waterproof seal, and it's soldered in the middle. That's why I really like these connectors. They're just nice and easy to use. Okay, so this is the finished product. So before, the plug used to sit about here. We've now extended and added that much more wiring. So that means that plug will be easier to tuck and hide out of the way. So good. If you guys want to replicate this, it's easy to do. To be fair, with any wiring, it doesn't have to be engine bay wiring. It can be any wiring. It's just a lot easier, I find, with those connectors. So yeah. I came up for in terms of my Immobilizer alarm bracket, which is going to mount under here, so underneath the wing liner and out of sight. We've got a little aluminium bracket that will bolt through there, and then this steel bracket that is for the Immobilizer that will bolt to there, and that will hold the Immobilizer up in place, and then the wiring will be run on the rest of this once it's all tucked up out of the way. So this is made out of a little piece of aluminium, and this is the bit of steel that came with the original Immobilizer that mounted it up on the top of the firewall, voice cracked. So that's going to hopefully do nicely, not contact anything, and also mount the Immobilizer out of the way so it's not visible and disgusting looking. So yes, I have drilled these holes here. I have coated the inside of the holes with Hammerite, so they shouldn't, any surface corrosion shouldn't happen. They were coated straight away, so I'm going to grease the bolts and then truck them through. So let's get the Immobilizer mounted. Okay, so the factory looms on these cars, obviously the fuse box is mounted here, as I've said a few times. The wiring runs down here and runs along the bottom of the radiator support here. Now, what I'm going to be doing is running the wiring exactly in the same orientation along the bottom of the radiator support here. But because the fuse box has obviously moved and it is now under here as I've showed you, you have all of, obviously from here to where it ran down to run along the bottom, you have about a foot to a foot and a half of excess wiring. Now you've got to hide that somewhere if you're putting the fuse box under here where I've decided to put it. So let me show you what I have done to get around this. It's probably not very pretty, but obviously you've got the main fuse box here. All the fuses, there's a plug here that's not plugged in, and obviously I've got my horn as well. Now the main bulk of the wiring obviously comes out the bottom of the fuse box, and you don't want that obviously against the frame rail, so you mount it facing down so that the wiring comes out the bottom. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but this is how I've done it. I don't know if you guys would like to copy this. I guess you can. Probably not the best way, but it works for me, and this is what I'm running. This is what I'm running with. I'd much rather have it here like this than in the engine bay. So obviously the wiring comes out here. I could shorten this. You could shorten this and make it go straight from there to there and then do away with all of this. But I don't like wiring at all, to be honest. Like, cutting and extending a couple of wires and stuff is about enough in terms of what I want to do in terms of wiring, because I don't really like messing with looms and things. So this to me is a much better solution than cutting it and then joining them all together, because there's a lot of wires inside this bit. But it comes out of the fuse box, and I've routed it up under the headlight and around down, and then obviously back underneath the radiator support and along the bottom. Now, I did originally strip all the conduit off. However, I have reused some of the conduit in a couple of the areas, especially along here where it may chafe against the radiator support, and the ground lead now bolts into the front radiator support. Now, yes, I probably could have cut and joined it, because effectively all I'm doing is cutting and joining wires into wires. I'm not changing colours or joining anything joining anything into anything else. I'm just literally cutting the wires, cutting a section out and then joining them back to the same colour wire. But it's just personally for me not something that I want to not something that I want to do. I mean, you guys may think that that's a little bit silly, but that's personally just not what I want to do. I don't like wiring. I just rather route it like this and then leave it to it. But this is what I've come up with. This is what works for me. So if you guys are looking to do the same sort of thing, get the fuse box out of the engine bay and hide it somewhere else. I mean, this thing won't be seeing a wet road, so this placement here should be fine. But I don't know if there's another way that I can just waterproof this just to make sure. I don't know. I need to figure it out. But we're gonna roll with this. Let me know what you guys think. If there's a better way to do it, then let me know. Okay, that'll do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy the slightly shorter length of this video. Maybe it made it easier for you to watch. Maybe it made it better for you to watch on your lunch break. Whatever. Let us know down in the comments what you think. Your feedback is genuinely important to us. But anyway, I will catch you in the next episode. Hopefully we're going to have a bit more bits of wiring. Who knows? I guess you'll just have to wait and see what I end up getting myself into next episode. Anyway, stay safe, guys. Take it easy, and I'll catch you in the next one.